Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and in this video we're going to be comparing the Asics Megablast and the Hoka Mach X3. The Mach X3 and the Megablast are both excellent super trainers that have been released this year. They're two of my favourite shoes personally because they've got such versatile rides, having a lot of speed for faster runs and a good amount of comfort and stability for easy runs. Mach X3 is a plated shoe, whereas the Megablast isn't, but otherwise do share some similar elements to their design and are both pushed as speed-focused trainers that also double as very good all-rounders. The Megablast is a more expensive shoe. I'm going to say that in any verses we do with the Megablast because it is such an expensive shoe. It's £210 or $225. The Hoka Mach X3 pretty expensive itself at £170 or $190. Megablast is a fair bit lighter. It's 241 grams or 8.5 ounces in the UK 9, US 10. The Mach X3 is 274 grams or 9.7 ounces in the UK 9, but that's a US 9.5, so it's a bit heavier in what is a slightly smaller shoe. Got an 8mm drop on the Megablast and then a 5mm drop on the Mach X3, and stack height stat head towards those mid-40s in terms of millimetres at the heel. With the Asics, you've got an engineered woven upper, a little bit of padding around the heel, not much on the tongue. It's a balanced upper, I'd say. It's focused on being lightweight, but there is enough comfort there as well. You've got an FF Turbo squared midsole. This is Asics' most responsive foam, they say. You've got a full slab of it here in the Megablast, so it is a foam that delivers a lot of bounce. There's no plate in there, like I say, but this is still a shoe geared up for speed because of its lightweight, springy design. Then you've got Asics grip, rubber outsole. Not a lot of coverage on the bottom of the shoe, but the key areas around the forefoot and heel are covered. Exposed foam in the midfoot doesn't seem to have taken any wear and tear yet with my testing. With the Mach X3, you've got a warp knit upper with a lot more padding than you had on the Mach X2. I'll say that. It's a much more comfortable upper all round. It's got a bit more padding than the Megablast in general, I would say, but it is still a pretty lightweight upper. You've got a dual density midsole with a top layer made from Piba foam. Then there's a Pebax plate, and underneath that Pebax plate is a layer of EVA foam. The plate has little winglets in the forefoot to add some more stability there, and you've got Hoka's usual rocker profile on the shoe. When it comes to the outsole, you've got a couple of cutouts, decent rubber coverage on the forefoot and heel. It's not too dissimilar to the Megablast on that front, with outsoles that don't fully cover the bottom of the shoe to try and save weight.
So let's give you a quick word on fit then. And in the Mach X3 I ran in a UK 9, US 9.5. I would say the fit on these is still quite snug. It's quite kind of racy. It's all very dialed in. There isn't a huge amount of room towards the end of the toe box. The taper is quite sharp and everything, it feels held and hugged. Not quite cramped, but it's not far off. It's a really kind of racy fit. You've got just about enough across the toe knuckles here, but it holds really nice and snug. So it still has that kind of dialed in racy fit that you got from the other ones. I do find the uppers are a bit more flexible though, so it does create a slightly more roomy fit. Back into the midfoot, and I find these laces hold down really well. I've got quite kind of high end steps here, but they do lock in really nice and tight. Not too much spillage over the other sides here. Tongues are kind of sort of light to medium padded, take the lace pinch off. And then you've got these kind of medium padded heel collars, which I think make a big difference over the last Mach X2 to add a little bit more comfort for long haul. And then moving on to the Megablast, I ran in a UK 8.5, US 9.5, which was my regular size in Asics shoes. I would find the fit on these, it's sort of almost absolutely spot on. You've got a little bit more clearance, I think, towards the end of the toes. It does feel a bit more roomy in this kind of forefoot volume area. Still holds really nicely across the toe knuckles. It's not driving my little toes in too much. There's not too much cramping going on there. And again, there's a reasonable amount of wiggle room. It does feel quite dialed in, but it's, there's flex and there's space, and it just feels comfortable and not too cramped. So I think the Hoka Mach X3 is a little bit more tight on that in terms of the fit, even going half a size up. When you come back into the midfoot, the lacing structure here works perfectly for me. I get really excellent midfoot lockdown, holds really nicely. The tongue's much more lightweight, but they do a good job. No lace pinch, there's enough padding there. And then into the heel collars, you've got this sort of internal padding setup that probably comes up medium padded as well. Pretty similar there in terms of comfort as the Mach X3. It holds really well. Everything's good. So yeah, in summary, I think for the Asics Megablast, I would go true to size, and then in the Hoka Mach X3, I'd probably look at going half a size up.
When it comes to size of the two shoes, I've got a UK 9 in both of them, but with Hoka that's a US 9.5, the Asics it's a US 10. I do think they've got a fairly similar fit. The Megablast is not quite as roomy around the toes as some other Asics shoes in that size, but overall those are the sizes I use with both brands across the board, and I have had a really good fit with both of them. No complaints on either front in terms of comfort or size or anything like that. So if you're here in the UK, I'd be aware of the fact that Hoka converts its sizing differently to Asics here, but around the world I think you can stick to your normal running shoe size, and if you've used shoes from these brands before that have fit well, I would stick stick with that size in general. On to run test, and I've done a lot of running in both of these shoes, used them extensively during my training for the Loch Ness Marathon, and I've done a lot of different types of runs in both of them. I'm up to about 120k in the Hoka Mach X3, and I've done about 210k now in the Asics Megablast. And like I say, that really has involved everything from very easy runs, recovery runs the day after a session, easy to steady progression runs, my kind of classic daily run, and then all out sessions, whether that's short intervals or tempo runs as part of doubles. And I've actually also raced a park run in the Megablast at a pretty decent effort level. So I have tackled a lot of different runs in both shoes, and that's because they are both so incredibly versatile and they have performed well across that wide range of runs, I would say. Had the Megablast in first, and it really does have an excellent ride. Like this new FF Turbo Squared foam that we've got in the midsole provides just a really nice balance of bounce, stability, comfort. It really is a perfect midsole for an all-rounder like this, because it's a lightweight shoe, but it transitions pretty quickly, got a nice amount of bounce off the toes, and got a lot of comfort at the back of the shoe because it is such a high stack shoe, and enough stability for me because it is quite wide. Like I don't think this is a super soft shoe. Like I haven't found it overly squishy myself, and the transition is nice and fast when you need it to be, but also nice and comfortable when you are looking at those easy runs. I think I enjoyed it most probably in a long tempo run. Actually, I've done similar long tempo runs in both these shoes during marathon training, where I might go out and do 10 or 15 miles at just under 6 minute a mile pace, that kind of thing. And in both these shoes, it just feels really good. And actually the Megablast, although it doesn't have a plate, it doesn't really lose anything in terms of its ability to help you retain speed and maintain speed over those long distances. And actually when I did the park run in it, I was really impressed by it again, because it's a big shoe, but it just doesn't feel like it when you really do start to run fast. You get a little bit of blockiness off the heel maybe, but not too much. And yeah, I felt like I ran a park run that day, I think in about 16:28, was taking it fairly conservatively, first kind of sharp run back after the Loch Ness Marathon, and I felt really in control and impressed by how fast it felt on the foot. Now with the Mach X3, you've got a heavier shoe for sure than the Megablast, and also the Mach X2, but still one that I think performs really well at fast paces, and is especially good for kind of marathon training workouts. When you're mainly doing long sessions that aren't necessarily at an express pace or one of your faster race paces, but lots of long reps or progression runs, that kind of thing, it does that really well because it offers you a really good blend of comfort and speed. Like it really does protect the body pretty well, the Mach X3, and it can pick up the speed well, despite the fact it's got 40 odd grams on the Megablast. Like it's not something that I found has really translated to a massive difference in terms of performance at speed. It's still a really good and capable speed shoe, the Mach X3, whilst being very comfortable and supportive for easy runs. Like the big upgrade with the Mach X3 this year is they've made the upper more comfortable than the previous version, and that does make it much more suitable for daily training, I find. I've always found it a pretty stable shoe. I think maybe the Megablast for me has the edge on stability, even though it's a slightly softer shoe than the Mach X3. I think Mach X3 is geared up a bit more towards speed and maybe doesn't feel quite as stable sometimes as the Megablast, but I haven't had any problems with stability on either shoe. Mach X3 I think is a bit more rocker than the Megablast though. I do think it transitions a bit more smoothly off the heel, where it hasn't got quite such a blocky design that you do have with the Asics. I did do a short run wearing both shoes at the same time. Megablast did come across as a little bit softer to me there, and maybe a tad bouncier, but got a slightly flatter transition onto the forefoot, I would say, than the Mach X3, which really does roll through very smoothly, has a nice amount of bounce off the toes as well. Like both shoes felt very good, varied the pace a fair bit during that short run with both shoes, and yeah, they do feel really good at all kinds of paces. They are very versatile shoes, and two shoes that I do love running in.
So then in testing, I've logged north of 50 miles in both of these shoes. I've pushed them across a range of paces. I've done a load of different sessions in them, everything from the usual kind of easy recovery runs right up to 5k pace intervals. My longest run in the Megablast was around 90 minutes on feet. I then did an 18-mile, 3-hour long run, so like a slow and steady one, in the Hoka Mach X3 to test the long haul potential of this one, which is, in the past, I've sort of usually used for being kind of a speed shoe, or the Mach X2 as a sort of faster training shoe. So I've done everything with a good mix of paces for both shoes. And to kick off, I'd say you've got two shoes here that I think offer a healthy amount of versatility. I think they're among the most versatile shoes going. They balance good upper comfort with a big stack, kind of high energy midsole that both offer plenty of punch. I think they get there slightly differently. About how they deliver that is different. And a few things that I'd highlight: I think the lower drop of the Mach X3 is offset by the kind of substantial rocker here, and that leads to a bit more of a rolling ride. But if you tend to reach for kind of higher drop shoes, I think the Megablast might be preferable. It's a bit flatter, I find, so you're relying a bit more on the bounce rather than the roll through than you get on the Mach X3, so that's one difference. The Mach X3 I think now works much better from sort of runs easy up to tempo pace. The extra comfort that you've got with the more padded collars versus the Mach X2 makes it a much more forgiving shoe for long hauling, which was something the Megablast is sort of cut out for as well. The Megablast is the lighter shoe. It definitely delivers a bouncier ride. It's kind of full of energy and spring and kind of liveliness, particularly around marathon pace. You've got sort of racy uppers, you get smooth transitions. I did have some sort of relative instability though, and I think you need to like things softer at slower paces. But if that is your bag, the Megablast I think is highly competent, highly versatile. The Mach X3 for me is more stable. It's got a less sinky platform, which I tend to prefer across the range of paces, but particularly when I'm moving slower, where I found the Megablast at times could just be a bit sluggish. You know, this pops back pretty quickly. And then I also did a side-by-side mile with one shoe on each foot, and here's what I found. So then I'm just finishing up the side-by-side mile. I've got the Megablast on the left foot, I've got the Hoka Mach X3 on the right foot. When you first put these on, the first thing you notice, or even just looking at them on the floor, the Megablast is a much sort of wider, longer shoe. It's a bigger shoe overall. There is more to it, and I think when you lace them in, you can feel that the Hoka Mach X3 is going to be a little bit more compact. It's a little bit more precise. It just feels a bit more dialed in, and I think that probably for me, I kind of prefer that kind of fit of a shoe. The Asics Megablast is a big old shoe on the foot. There's a lot of it going on, but then when you get moving, I think the biggest difference here is that the Megablast has a lot more cushion. It's a lot softer, and it relies much more on that kind of softness and then the bounce return, whereas the Mach X3, there's a bit of more stiffness in that midsole. It's a bit firmer, it's a bit quicker to come back, it's a bit snappier as a result. It's not going to offer you quite as much kind of plush cushion, and I think you're relying a bit more on the rocker, and you're giving yourself a good push off rather than the bounce coming back that you get from the Megablast. If you want something that's going to give you a bit more immediacy, it's going to be the Hoka Mach X3. If you really like that kind of soft cushion bounciness, which is very, very protective, but also offers up pretty good energy as well, then the Megablast is going to be the shoe to go for. If you want a shoe that feels like less volume on the foot, even though the Mach X3 is the heavier shoe, and I think you can feel the weight of it slightly more, it still feels a little bit more agile to me than the wider platform of the Megablast. In terms of comfort on the foot, even at a half size up, the Hoka's a bit more dialed in, it's a bit more racy. The other thing I will say, I think if you are a runner who lands a bit further back into the heels, there's definitely a bit more softness in the heels on the Megablast. So if you like that cushion in your sort of further, landing further back in the shoe, then that's another thing that you're going to get from the Megablast. The Mach X2 does give you a bit more ground coming up. So again, I think that's maybe going to look at the distances and the time on feet that you might want to run in each of these shoes. The Megablast probably going to protect you with a bit more cushion for longer time on feet. The Mach X3 might not be everybody's cup of tea for going over a certain amount of time, maybe 90 minutes or a half marathon. I personally don't mind it. I ran 3 hours in it and it does a job just fine for me, but I quite like a shoe that does offer a bit more kind of firmness and sort of a snappy responsiveness rather than the big soft bouncy. Got two great shoes here that I think a lot of runners could well use to train for and then even race a marathon. I think the Hoka Mach X3 is now a bit closer to the Megablast in terms of the sort of runs that I would use it for, certainly more so than the Mach X2 was. And if you're looking to tread a line between comfort and performance, rather than going for the all-out kind of top punchy carbon shoe energy or top fastest training shoe energy, I think they both really work well, particularly at marathon pace, but they can also handle a good range of paces around that as well. The Mach X3 probably works better when you're moving faster than marathon pace as well as at marathon pace, but it's a shoe that I find asks you to do a bit more of a work with a kind of quicker pickup. It expects you to pick your feet a bit more. The Megablast is kind of going to bounce you along with a sort of really kind of fun energy. So which is best may well depend on how you like your ride. I think the Megablast might suit longer runs better for a lot of runners, while the Mach X3 might be a better kind of workout shoe for the shorter runs and runs up to a certain distance, maybe half a marathon. If I had to choose one shoe, I think I would personally go for the Mach X3, though not least because it's much cheaper, but it can do a lot of the runs that I like, and I like the way that it rides. But my hunch, I think, is that most runners would probably prefer the Megablast first, just because of that extra softness and that kind of bouncier, sort of more lively, sort of fun ride.
So it comes to the verdict, there's not too much in it when it comes to the performance of these two shoes. They're both fantastically versatile, they are great all-rounders, especially for marathon runners, I think, because the kind of workouts you'll be doing for marathon training really suit these shoes in terms of them being, comfortable and fast. So they're giving you the support you need to go and do those long progression runs, those long sessions with long reps like 4x4K and that kind of thing. They really do provide a nice balance of speed, stability, protection, all those kind of things you want in a marathon training shoe. Neither is quite so good when it comes to express pace, like really pushing hard on the track over short reps. I think they're a little bit big for that, but there's not too much of a difference between them. Even though the Megablast is the lighter shoe, I do think the Hoka Mach X3 matches it for pace, maybe because I think it's got a slightly more rocket ride and the plate maybe helps out a bit. So yeah, both excellent shoes. You can consider adding to your rotation as an all-rounder or as a more speed-focused workout shoe. If you came to me just straight up, which of these shoes you want to keep in your rotation, and I'm going to take the other one away right now, I'd probably say the Megablast. I really love the ride feel of it. I do prefer that slightly softer bouncy feel it has sometimes. I just think it's a great shoe, and it's nice to not train always in a plated shoe, even though it is still a very stiff shoe. I'm not sure there's too much of a difference on that front, but yeah, the Megablast is probably the one I'd lean to on gut feel. If you then said it's going to cost you £40 more to do that, I'd take the Mach X3 because it is really close in performance. I love it a lot as well, and if there was a slightly better colour of it, I'd probably love it even more. So yeah, the Mach X3, I think, given how close the performance is the better buy. It's a fair bit cheaper. It's still really versatile. It's got loads of fun, loads of comfort. A great shoe, and cheaper than the Megablast, which is also an excellent shoe. I think one of the best shoes released this year, but priced a bit too high for what it is, I think, when there is such excellent competition like the Mach X3 out there for less. That's a comparison of the Asics Megablast and the Hoka Mach X3. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we will see you next time.